Do you ever struggle with feeling relevant in your life, in your marriage, in your career? I know that for many of the pilot wives and others in aviation, it can be easy to start feeling irrelevant and overlooked, especially when so much emphasis often is placed on the pilot's career, and all of that. So, I am sharing with you an episode that I actually did for my other YouTube and podcast, the Lower Toxic Life show, where I talk about feeling relevant mostly in 50s and 60s. But the reality of it is, we can struggle with this at any point in our life. And so I thought it would be particularly prudent right now to share that with all of you, whatever age that you are, wherever you are in your life, your marriage, your career. It's easy to begin doubting ourselves and feeling irrelevant. So I share in this 3 key pieces. And if you're listening to this on a podcast channel, you can definitely click into the show notes where I will have the YouTube video so that you can see I talk a little bit about wearing hats, and I showcase my hat. I talk a little bit about how we dress, and a specific event that I went to where I had the opportunity to hear Air Force One pilot Colonel Mark Tillman, who was flying on 9/11, and talking a little bit about that, but also specifically how I dressed for this networking event of 500 people, and the feeling that it gave me when people commented on my clothing, and the lift that it gave me to begin even feeling more relevant. I was already working on this topic, but I thought it was so timely that all of this happened at the same time. And I realized that for me personally, my goal in sharing all of this, and specifically about clothing, is not to put anything on you in terms of how you dress. For me, dressing and my image and a lot of that is very important to me because of the career path that I've been on for a long time. And just overall, the lift that it gives me personally when I feel like I look better. So please note that going in. And again, that YouTube and podcast channel is Lower Toxic Life. So you can pop that into YouTube if you want to follow on that, because I referenced some different videos in there that are part of that series. But again, for the aviation community and specifically pilot wives who I talk to and coach with and know you struggle with this is where I wanted to go with this particular episode. Enjoy. So you may be asking, who am I now? Who have I been? And am I happy with that? And more importantly, which is where I really want to focus this series that I'm creating here at Lower Toxic Life on, who do I want to become? Staying relevant after age 50. Do you struggle wondering what is next for you in this phase of life? Do you wonder if you've moved into that season of life where you just take a back seat? This can be true for both men and women. So men who are listening, I invite you to stay. And women, please know that I'm talking specifically to you. Today, we're going to discuss feeling relevant and finding purpose in that second, or sometimes deemed third, phase of life. It's important that we begin to overcome self-doubt if it's something that we've struggled with. And for women, most of us have all of our lives. It's important to stay engaged in society. And it's important to have meaningful contribution. That's what so many of us are looking for from birth on, but certainly as we move into this next phase of life. So let's face the reality of 50. For many, we may struggle with weight, health, sleep, hormones, weird aches and pains, and just overall looking at ourselves in the mirror and thinking, I don't necessarily like what I see back. Right? We often don't love what looks back at us from the mirror. We may have careers that are unfulfilling, or maybe we've reached the end. We get downsized, right-sized, whatever you want to call it. And relationships and marriages can be that way too. We have grown or nearly grown children who now have less time for us, and maybe they're less interested in us and our opinions. Ouch, I know that stings. I've learned how to manage that with my own adult children, how to stay out of over-mothering mode when my opinion and my judgments and my comments aren't wanted, needed, or necessary. So you may be asking, who am I now? Who have I been? And am I happy with that? And more importantly, which is where I really want to focus this series that I'm creating here at Lower Toxic Life on who do I want to become? So make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss any of these episodes in the series on 50, 60, retirement, and beyond. And ideally, curating a life that you love in relationships, career and purpose, health, and more. And certainly curating a life you love around who you are in this phase of life. I'm Jackie Elmer, helping you create a more fulfilling life, mindful of healthier living and less toxic stressors. Grab my guide over at lowertoxiclife.com. Now, this series is going to focus on ideas around feeling relevant and finding purpose, which is today's topic. Health and well-being as we move into those last years of life. Discipline and productivity and routines and how all of that can serve us. Dealing with other people's opinions. Can I get a witness? Relationships and social life. Career and passion projects. Mission work and giving back. How do we go about feeling relevant and finding purpose? I've discussed this very topic with multiple women over the years. And my 50th birthday honestly brought about a lot of emotions and realizations. One, I spent the day mostly alone, which for the most part is fine. I'm used to that. I'm married to a pilot. He was flying that day, and my adult son had moved out. My daughter was at school, and I spent that day mostly alone, which is typically fine. But it was interesting because in that aloneness and being aware that I had moved into a different decade, now I will tell you, it didn't bother me to turn 30, it didn't bother me to turn 40, and it didn't really bother me to turn 50, but I remember a feeling of restlessness that day and then continuing for a while. I remember a very finite feeling about the rest of my life. And so I began to focus more on a bucket list. That's a term that gets bantered around a lot, but bucket lists are important so that we make sure that we are accomplishing those things in our life that we desire. And it doesn't have to be around travel or anything grand, just specific things that you want to do. And I really started to catch myself on saying, well, the next time I'm here, I'm going to do this, because I started realizing, as the song says, I may never pass this way again. So I need to truly live in the moment. If I'm going to a location or having an experience, I need to definitely say what it is that I want to accomplish, experience, and do my best to get those things done. And I began to reevaluate my time and how I spend it, who I spend it with, and what truly brings me joy and meaning. And then finally, I really unpacked everything and took a look at my career, my business, my passion projects, and making impact. So what is it that makes us feel relevant? What makes us doubt our worth and our ability to continue to contribute? Now, as women especially, we know that society and norms tend to place certain expectations on us if we choose to buy into those. And I really want to stress that, because that's the beauty of 50s and 60s. It becomes much easier to toss all that out and say, I don't give a fill in the blank about those norms and what society says about me and what those expectations are. I'm living for me. I'm living for what I want to do. I'm living for the people who matter to me. But those societal norms creep up on us. Our appearance, our body image, our weight, our confidence, our skin, and wrinkles, and anti-aging. A word that I don't really love, and I find that many of my friends of my same age, slightly older, slightly younger, feel the same way. What is anti about aging? What is anti about aging? The time, the knowledge, the experiences, and wisdom that come with it. I wouldn't give that up for anything. I love the old movie, Peggy Sue Got Married. I know I'm dating myself, but hey, I'm dating myself in this video. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. But the thing I love about it is she gets to go relive a time in her senior year in high school, but with her, I think she's in her 40s at the time, but with the knowledge and experiences that she has. And she can throw caution to the wind and not worry about being part of the popular crowd and people pleasing and all the different things. I love that movie because I've often thought, what would I go back and do differently if I had a day or even a week to spend at my high school? I recently, this was a couple of years ago, but I was at Barnes and Noble, and I don't even remember what I was shopping for, but it was about the time that Martha Stewart, so it may have been last year, it was about the time that Martha Stewart made the cover of Sports Illustrated in her 80s. And oh my gosh, the world erupted. Some women were championing it, some women were not. Was she photoshopped? What was done? I mean, if you're going to do it authentically, blah, 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 blah. But I remember being in Barnes and Noble, and I ventured over to the magazine rack, which there is still one. And I remember looking around at all of the different magazines. And really, I was focused on what are those societal norms for women. And it was so interesting because all of the more male-dominated magazines, GQ, I think Entrepreneur, which is not strictly men, but there was a man on the cover. Some of those, what are often referred to as more male-dominated magazines, all had older men. Pierce Brosnan, Sean Connery, Harrison Ford, Tim Cook from Apple, all in their older years in life, and all looking quite handsome, quite dapper, amazing. But then when I went and looked at the women's magazines, Vogue, Glamour, I'm trying to think, I can't even remember all of them. They all had women in the 20 to 30 age range. And I stood there looking at that and thinking, isn't that interesting? We value not only the experiences of men in their 50s, 60s, and beyond, but we also still continue to value their aging process, how they look. They become more distinguished. We hear the silver fox and all of that. And yet, for women, we might value their experiences, but if you think about it, looking through the media at all, women are most often called out for how they dress. Did they wear a hat? Which, quite frankly, I've been a hat wearer for years. It's something that I had to evolve into, and I'm going to cover some of that when we talk about relevance and confidence, which is why I'm wearing this specifically today. I want to share my thoughts on feeling relevant and happy, which leads then to being relevant and happy. The first thing is you have to ask yourself and answer, who is it that gets to decide about your worth or your relevance? And do you or we need outside validation? Now, I've said before, validation is for parking. So here's my tip number one. Overcome your own self-doubt and learn to validate yourself every day. Start it first thing in the morning when you get up. Rise, shine, jump out of bed if you can, stretch up, reach down, touch your toes, and say, you are amazing. Go look in the mirror, and as you brush your teeth, high five yourself in the mirror and say, you look amazing. And as you go through your day, say, I feel amazing and I am amazing, because you are. Every single person on this earth is amazing in some way. So my outfit, I'm talking about wearing hats. I wore this outfit just a couple of days ago to a networking event. It was a very large networking event that probably had at least 500 people in it. And I felt really privileged to be there because Colonel Mark Tillman, who was the pilot of Air Force One for both Bush administrations and Clinton, and was actually flying Air Force One on the day of 9/11, was there, and he spoke. And it was so great. He's in his 80s, and he is still very relevant. So all of this really fit into this topic that I wanted to cover. Now, I dressed for success. I was going to a networking event, and I like to put my best face forward when I'm out in the public. I like to do the same at home because it validates me, and I feel better when I dress up and show up and do all of those things. So this is exactly what I wore to that networking event. And it was fun. All my gal pals, oh, you look so cute. And I totally appreciated that. But interestingly, 3 random men who I'd never met before or seen before, all separately commented on what I was wearing. And how I felt after that was amazing. And one specifically, because one of my style icons is Audrey Hepburn. And he said to me, oh my gosh, you look like that gal from Breakfast at Tiffany's. What is her name? Audrey Hepburn. And I said to him, I'm going to take that as a total compliment because she's one of my style icons. So we had a nice little chat about that. But it was interesting how much those comments really boosted the way that I then continued to feel about myself. And I had a very busy day for the rest of the day, and I did not change my outfit. I went shopping at Costco because I had to. I did a bunch of different things. And it is amazing when you dress up and show up, people do tend to treat you differently. And I'm just going to say, for me, I don't want to put this on you. That begins to help me feel more relevant. It makes me feel noticed. And when I feel noticed, I often have a tendency to express myself and share my own relevance with opinions and all the rest of that when I feel more confident. Now, it's funny, I mentioned hats. I have a history with hats. I have always loved hats, but I didn't wear them very much other than baseball caps. In my 20s and 30s, I very seldom wore a hat unless I went to the beach, a beach hat or something like that. But over time, I really decided that I wanted to wear more hats. A, it hides a bad hair day. B, I just love the way it can complete an outfit, and I'm just really attracted to hats. And so the first time that I really bought a hat to wear, I struggled for a long time. I would put it on in the house. I would put it on and get ready to go out, and then I would think, oh man, I can't pull off hats. I look ridiculous, all of that. And I just struggled with that a whole lot. And the reality of it is I didn't want to continue to struggle with that. I really wanted to wear hats for me because I love them. I love the way they complete an outfit, and I wanted to get there. So I finally just had to put my self-doubt aside, stop focusing on what my judgmental self was seeing back from the mirror, and just start wearing the hat. And the first time I wore it, it was a little uncomfortable, even though people commented. And the second time I wore it, it got a little less uncomfortable. And now I wear hats all the time. I probably wear a hat like this at least once a week. And I have probably 10 hats, a huge collection of black ones, a maroon one, brown ones, some blue ones. And I am expanding my hat collection as we speak. So what I had to do was ask myself, what is it I'm doubting about myself when I wear a hat? So that's what I want to encourage you to do. What do you currently doubt about yourself that precludes you from feeling relevant? And write it down. Spend a little bit of time. Just get a piece of paper or a notebook or your journal. What do you doubt about yourself? Write it down. And why do you have these doubts? And what are the beliefs and stories from the past? I know for me with my hat, part of it was everybody else wears a hat better. I didn't like the way my face looked. If my hair was not, my hair was kind of like a cloak or a shield down around my face. I've always had longer hair. But it's funny because I would put it up in a baseball cap or pull it up in a clip and think nothing of it. But there was something about putting the hat on that I also believed that part of that story was it was drawing attention to me. And did I really want that attention? On the one hand, yes, just like I shared how I felt when I got the 3 men who commented, and specifically the one. Now, I'm very happily married. None of them were hitting on me. It wasn't about anything along those lines. It was just, again, that positive reinforcement of how we look, which can lead to how we feel. So what if you wrote down those self-doubts that you had, those old stories and beliefs that you're generating about that, and what if you did, just like me, let go of that? What if you, in spite of those feelings, interacted with whatever it is that's holding you back, just like me and hats? Now, tip number 2 for feeling relevant and ultimately staying relevant is to stay engaged in society and technology. Now, that may seem crazy, but it really is, because when we're out and about moving in society, we can begin to feel more relevant. Just like me at this networking event, I had a beautiful time at this event, talking and meeting new people, being engaged with them, learning more about them. What is it they do? Why are they at this event? What do they want to get out of it? And all of that. So staying engaged in society is important. And that could be business networking. It could be, friends networking. Maybe you play pickleball. It doesn't have to be business oriented, but how do you stay engaged in society and stay up to speed with what is going on? Now, that doesn't mean you have to read the news every night or any of that, but just be in the know. And tech these days has a big thing to do with that. Now, if you haven't heard my story before, and chances are you haven't on this channel, I do have a business channel. You can find me here at Jackie Ulmer on YouTube. And then I have my Travel Life by a Pilot Wife YouTube channel as well. But my story of the internet is I was in direct sales and network marketing back in the 90s. And in 1999, I went to an internet marketing seminar and I took my business online. So I'm not going to get into that story, but it was interesting because I remember at the time thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about .com. Who am I to think that I can begin to build a business online? But that's exactly what I did. In October of 1999, I made a decision I was going to take my business online, and I did. Even though I knew nothing about technology, I knew nothing about computers, I knew nothing about building websites or any of that. But I knew that it was figure outable. I knew that if I put my brain to it and I truly wanted it, I could figure it out. And that's exactly what I did. And now I've been a party starter my whole life. And what I mean by that is I've never hesitated to go to networking events and meet strangers. Because of my airline industry involvement and being in sales and marketing and a lot of the things that I did in that, I was forced to be out and about among strangers. And I was forced into new careers and moving with the industry and having to find and make new friends. So being a party starter has never been a struggle for me. Now, I'm an introverted extrovert. If you were to meet me, you would think I'm a total extrovert. But a lot of times I think we get bogged down in what those meanings truly are. And being introverted doesn't necessarily mean being shy. It's a lot to do with how we generate energy and sustain ourselves. But I'm never hesitant to walk into a new group and stick my hand out, introduce people or introduce myself to people and say, tell me about you, because that takes all the focus off of me and it makes it easy for them. So I've learned how to do things in spite of feelings I might have at the time. Now, as I'm recording this in 2025, it is a big year for me. I've made the decision that it's going to be a big year for you. So it doesn't matter when you're listening, decide right now today to make this big for you. So I started that with, again, in staying involved in society and tech and doing different things. I launched this YouTube channel in 2024, but I know what my plan is. I have a very succinct written plan for this channel and being out in society and creating content. So I hosted a New Year's Day brunch for 43 people. Hopefully by the time you see this, I will have that edited and up on the YouTube channel because I intend to do that. It was a very eclectic group. Several of the people, many of the people I invited, I had never met before. But I brought together a very interesting group from aviation and pilots and pilot wives. I brought together a group of my networking women and friends, my neighbors, my friends that are, friends regardless of networking, business, or any of that. My husband had launched a new band, so we had band members. We had this very eclectic group. We had friends from our days in California who've relocated over here. Some are from aviation, some are from the band world. I mean, it was just really an eclectic group. And I really, truly do reflect back and think it's one of the best parties I've ever thrown because of the throw caution to the wind. Don't worry about, is everybody going to have something to talk about or any of that? Just do it. Now, I'm also hosting a Galentine's Day brunch for women because February 13th is Galentine's Day and it's all about gal pals. Right? Thus Galentine's Day. And I like to call that vitamin G. Me and my group of friends, we call it vitamin G. Being around our good friends, our girlfriends, and doing all of that. Again, it's a very eclectic group, and I'm hosting it here in my home, and you'll be seeing some footage of that. Now, I also plan, my birthday's coming up. Still time for you to shop. I also plan on hosting my own birthday party with a friend of mine who shares my same birthday. I'm older than her by a few years, but we share the same birthday, so we're going to do something. I've also looked ahead on my calendar and I've planned trips for the year. Buffalo and the Great Lakes. I have that bucket list that I mentioned. One of them is doing all the Great Lakes. I'm missing two. This summer, my family, my children, my granddaughter, we're going to get together. We're going to fly into Buffalo, see Niagara Falls, and then drive across part of Canada and catch the two lakes that are actually the bookends, I believe, that I am missing of the Great Lakes. I also have a bucket list of seeing all the presidential libraries in the United States. And there are 3 in Texas. And so I am going to take a trip to Texas and go see those 3 presidential libraries. I'm missing 4 states out of our 50. Vermont. So I'm going to hit Vermont. And then the 3 western states, the Dakotas and Wyoming, which is crazy because I'm from the West. And then I have a trip at Christmas, or in December, I should say, planned for New York. Again, with my granddaughter, some friends, go see the Rockettes, and to continue a series of adventures that I started with my own daughter that now I want to continue with my granddaughter. And then other events that I have planned include progressive dinners, hosting salons in my home where I bring in mostly women to talk about health and wellness and relevance and, our next phase in life and a lot of those different things. And then the tech side of it for me is this YouTube channel, my live cooking show that I'm doing on Tuesdays, and mastering and editing video. And then, of course, I mentioned I have 2 other channels. My focus is not on those. My Travel Life by a Pilot Wife podcast and YouTube channel, that's more for fun and traveling and all of that. And if it monetizes, that's great. I'm all happy about that. But if it doesn't, that's okay too. And then my third tip for staying relevant is to focus on contributing meaningfully. And what does that mean? Contributing meaningfully is not just about other people. It's also about how you contribute meaningfully on a day-to-day basis for yourself. Because that's kind of part of self-love and self-care. And when we take care of ourselves, we are much better equipped to serve others. Meaningful contribution truly does bring joy. So ask yourself, what lights you up? What do you enjoy doing? What can you add more of in that bucket at this phase in your life? So a few things that I'm focused on that are bringing meaning and joy to me: organizing my home. You'll begin to see some of I love thrifting and consignment stores and estate sales and garage sales. So I'm focused on organizing my home, finally cleaning out those closets, redesigning some of the decor that I use, repositioning different things. Does this have to stay here? Maybe every month I can mix things up a little and begin to appreciate and enjoy my home even more. And again, I'm doing all of this with thrift stores, consignment stores, estate sales, and all of that. And I'm videotaping it in the process, and I'm sharing it right here on this channel. So again, make sure you're subscribed, because I want to show people how to create meaning and impact and relevance in our own homes. I'm all about lowering the toxins and chemical environment around us. And part of that is toxic thoughts and toxic environment. And for me, when I walk into my closet and my pantry right now, it feels a little toxic, although I'm working on that because I am reorganizing and getting rid of so much extra clutter, and it feels great. And that kind of comes back to that minimalizing that I'll cover in another episode. Being a minimalist means different things to different people. And I'm going to share later in another video what that means to me. Now, another thing is monetizing and growing my YouTube channel, just like I mentioned. And of course, like I said, the Pilot Wife podcast and Travel Life by a Pilot Wife, if those monetize, it's great, but they're a passion project and something that I love doing. Travel with my family, my granddaughter, and creating those experiences, just like I did with my daughter, are important. And creating travel with friends. Creating travel with friends is very important to me as well. Vitamin G, my girlfriends and gal pals. Here's the reality. My husband, even though he spent a career as an airline pilot, does not love to travel like me. I've made peace with that. And I will tell you, that's part of eliminating toxic thoughts from our life. I was mad about that for a long time. I spent a lot of years simmering resentfully over his lack of desire to travel like I do. Now, it's not like it came up all the time. It's not like we talked about it. It's not like we fought over it. But deep down, I did have a little resentment. And then when he retired a few years ago, I thought everything was going to change. In my mind, I made up a story and a belief that he was going to all of a sudden want to travel in the same way that I do. And you know what? He doesn't. So what I finally came to peace with was making my own bucket list, taking that bucket list and just saying, hey, here's a place I want to go. Here's something I want to do, blah, blah, blah. Do you want to do this with me? It's a simple yes or no. And he'll either say yes or no. And honestly, most of the time, he says no. And I'm okay with that now because I don't need for him to change in order for me to go do something, in order for me to feel relevant or entitled, that's not the right word, able to go and do something. I, as a fully grown adult woman, can make decisions that don't have to include him. I can go travel. I can go do all those things. And if he chooses not to, that's okay. I'd rather him be peaceful and happy at home than bringing me down and me feeling like I'm babysitting, bringing him along when it's not something that he truly wants to do. So I have my list of gal pals that I travel with, other pilot wives, other friends, and we plan those trips together. And then no one needs to be mad or resentful. So some thoughts for you. Do an honest personal inventory and ask yourself, what do you really want in your life? What will help you feel more relevant? Make a list of 25 things that you really want in your life. And some of those things could be things that you already have. If you have a happy marriage, it's okay to put, I want a happy marriage. It's okay to acknowledge those things that we already have in our lives. If you love your home, where you live, any of that, don't be afraid to include those on your list of 25 things that you really want, because we want to hang on to those things. In fact, I encourage making it a balance of things that you don't have yet or haven't done or haven't experienced, and match that up with those things that you have that you want and want to continue. And then for those things that you don't have yet, what is stopping you? What is stopping you? Don't let it be a spouse, because just like I shared with my husband, and making peace with my own desire to travel and see and experience different things with or without him is important, because I don't want to abandon myself, because when I'm happy, he's happy, right? Happy wife, happy life. I don't know if that's entirely true, but I know that we both do better when both of us are equally happy. So some areas that you might choose to focus on are, first of all, joy. What lights you up? What brings you joy? Health. That's my next topic. That's the one that's coming up, is health and longevity as we move into this age of life. Our purpose. Maybe your purpose has shifted. Our bucket list. I mentioned all of that. So those are some areas of focus that you might think about as you begin to make that list. And then what beliefs and stories are you allowing to stop you? And I say allowing because that's a choice. It's a choice that we all make. Do they really need to stop you? Now, for the longest time, I told myself that I couldn't go on that trip if my husband didn't want to go too. I don't know where that story came from. Maybe I got it from my mom. Maybe that's how my parents lived. Maybe that's societal norms and things that we've learned, which are, if he doesn't want to do it, I can't do it either. And finally, I said, that's crazy. Go do it. Go do it. And then come back, right? And like I said, we'll both be happier. So the question I asked is, do these things really need to be stopped if somebody else doesn't want to do them with me or doesn't approve of me doing them? And then what small steps will you take today to course correct those beliefs, those limiting thoughts, those things that are holding you back? I would love to hear your responses in the comments. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Leave me that comment. This is what helps the channel grow, the message to get out. And as I mentioned, that's one of my focuses for 2025. So if you've liked what you hear here, like what you experience, help a gal out and give me a like and a subscribe. So as I mentioned, next in the series is health and well-being over 50. Make sure you grab my guide at lowertoxiclife.com. Do you ever find yourself on the struggle bus with relationships, career, or life in general? I'm a mindset and peak performance coach, helping women rediscover their own sense of identity and purpose, avoid turbulence, and put their own oxygen mask on first. Together, we work to get you out of autopilot and create a better flight plan for life and relationship success. As a pilot wife for over 30 years, I've navigated thousands of miles and moments in aviation, mommyhood, business, and life in general. I would love to offer you a free call to see if I might be able to help you too. You can go to coach.pilotwifepodcast.com. And if you have a topic suggestion or a story to share on the show, go to ask.pilotwifepodcast.com. And of course, you'll find all of this at resources.pilotwifepodcast.com. Please take a moment to review and rate the show on whatever your favorite podcast app is. This helps the show get found by others who need what we have here. I'll see you on the journey, and thanks for listening.